Welcome to Franchise Vibes. Again, I am TAMIKA Franklin, founder of Precision Franchise, and I am excited for this session. So the vibes we're on today is sales coaching vibes. So yes, this is good because we're going to be talking about elevating your sales and marketing game. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with Keith Orlean, and he's going to tell us about how he got into coaching, his experience. He has 40 years of experience, guys, so this should be good. And then we're going to bring in our next guest, which is going to be Gregg Johnson, who's actually a franchisee for Focal Point. So let's get ready to learn why it is very important to have some type of mentorship coaching when it comes to sales and when it comes to marketing for your business, whether you own a franchise or a small startup. So let's get started. So Keith, welcome to Franchise Vibes.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And just tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you have been in the coaching field for over 40 years. So yeah, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so actually I've been in sales for 40 years. Coaching, I've always, when you're in sales and you own businesses, you're always in a coaching mode because you hire salespeople, which I have hired and trained many through my career. So coaching was just, a natural ascension from my career of owning, operating, and building businesses. So sales is something I've always loved and still do. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of teaching others, not just how to sell, but how to even improve their sales techniques, even if they have been selling for a while, because you're never too old to learn. I've learned a lot of things from a lot of people throughout my career, and it's led me to where I am today in terms of coaching.
Great, great. So in your experience, I guess speaking about the sales and marketing coach, how significant would you say the role of having a coach or a mentor in the early stages of entrepreneurship in their entrepreneurship journey?
That's a very good question. The role of a sales coach and marketing coach early in one's career, I think, is very valuable. Now, there are also other areas of a business that can't be ignored. And entrepreneurs, when they get started, they're all excited and they want to, get into a new business and run it. But more often than not, there are a lot of holes in their own resume in terms of their past experience. They may have been in sales, but they've never run a business. So the operations and finance and deployment or delivery of a product could be a weakness for them. So they need that education. So I would say mentorship in general, I think, is real important. Not specifically sales only. And now you and I know as salespeople that sales is the cornerstone of everything. No sales, you don't need finance, operations, or any of that. But when I work with clients, if someone, as you mentioned in your introduction, that Gregg will be joining us shortly. Gregg will tell you about his background, but he's a finance and operations person. And that's where I was able to join forces with him, and I now help him on the sales and marketing side. So just to reiterate, the mentorship part, I think, is critical. But anything you can do to improve sales and marketing enhances the rest of your business. So I think it's real important. But I would say probably when people are starting a business and you're selling franchises of all different kinds. So a particular franchise, like a food franchise, it would be best if somebody has some background in the food industry, the restaurant industry. If it was a finance, franchise, you would hope that person has some finance background. My thing was always sales and marketing. That was my talent from the time I was a little boy, knocking on doors to get paid to shovel snow in the winter. it came naturally to me. I really enjoyed it. And so it's my passion. But having said that, having owned businesses, I learned a lot about all the other areas, not so I can be a expert in those areas, but you have to know a little bit about everything when you're running a business so that you're not ever in a position where, God forbid, somebody leaves or there's illness or you have to get rid of them for whatever reason, that you can at least step in short term to take care of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. So, can you share an example with us where your coaching directly influenced an entrepreneur's sales strategy and led to measurable improvements in their business performance?
Sure. So I think the key area that people in sales and that what I've worked with clients with is the ability to build both your personal and your business brand. So this is an area of weakness. And when I've worked with clients, the one thing that improved almost immediately, when I say immediately, it still takes 30 to 90 days before you start to see the benefits of any of the efforts of sales improvement and marketing improvement. On the marketing side, the brand building, the consistency of the brand, whether it's a brand like Focal Point, which is a global brand, or whether it's, my brand is me, so that's my personal brand. That it's Orlean Consulting. It's not, something other than that. So when I sell something, it's always about both personal and if there is a business behind it, retail environment or an online environment, the goal and the strategy is to make sure you connect the dots between sales and marketing. So, and Gregg is a perfect example of, and I've been working with him, it's going on 3 months now. He really didn't have a strategy in place. He bought a franchise and he'll tell you more about it, but there really was no plan of getting the brand out there and getting him out there.
Oh, okay. So that's where you focused on. Well, we'll definitely touch on that. I'd definitely like to know more about that. It's very interesting. I almost dived in before he got here, but definitely want to remember to elaborate on that.
Sure.
So just thinking about the mentorship value as you touched on, from your perspective, what are the most valuable aspects of mentorship that new entrepreneurs might not realize until they engage with the coach?
Well, I could tell you from my own experience, okay, because I really did not have any mentors. Not to try to tell you a sad story, but my dad died when I was 15 years old. So I really did not have like a father figure that would have been my mentor. My father was a salesman by trade. So I had to learn a lot on my own. And it would have been helpful to have mentorship. But now I'll tell you the other side of that. I really didn't seek mentorship. And I think that was a failing on my part because, and I think the reason I actually know, when you start a business, you are the person, you're the one, you're the leader, and you don't want your leadership to be diminished. So you think you could do everything on your own. What I've learned from that experience is you can't.
Right.
And you don't know what you don't know. And that's something you can't teach that. I've taught my kids this. You can't teach experience because when my kids were teenagers, especially my youngest son, thought he knew everything. That's how kids are. They think they know more than their parents. And I would say to him, you can't teach experience. So what happens? Fast forward 10 years later, finally came to me and said, do you know what, Dad? Because he's in business for himself now. Can't teach experience. Experience just happens. You learn, you fail, you fall down and you get up. So, my roundabout way of getting to your question and your answer is that I think mentorship is crucial. People should seek it out. Even if they can't afford a coach, there are
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of opportunities, both online networking opportunities
Mm-hmm.
within your own neighborhood, where you
Mm-hmm.
go and meet people. You can meet people that have been there, done that. And I would say people who are more mature and of a certain age enjoy the aspect of, it's my time to give back and to
Mm-hmm.
other people and younger people. So, I don't always get paid for the work I do. As a matter of fact, I do a lot of, you know, coaching. I don't want to call it a clinic, but where I'll have a group of people, 5 or 6 people that come to a sales seminar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I do 3 or 4 sessions that have specific things I cover. And then it's up to them if they want to hire me on a one-to-one basis. So I find that to be very beneficial. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. The people who join, okay, get a lot of benefit in terms of their knowledge. So they're able to utilize that and take it into their own business. And more often than not, it leads to business for myself. So, as I said, so I would say the things that are most important is don't be afraid of mentorship. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't demean you in any way by seeking help. It only enhances your knowledge base, which will allow you to grow and possibly avoid some of the mistakes that I know I made. And boy, I made a lot.
Well, so given the rapid changes in both the sales and marketing landscapes, especially with digital transformation, how do you ensure that your coaching strategies remain effective and relevant?
Okay, so one thing I always seek to learn, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an expert in everything. I'm an expert in sales.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an expert in marketing from a strategy perspective, but when it comes to actual implementation, I have partners,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that I work with who deal in the different areas of content creation and delivery. So I see the world is digital, even more so
Mm-hmm.
now since the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I really believe that if you're not all in on digital marketing, you're missing a great opportunity. And that's regardless of whether you're a brick and mortar or
Mm-hmm.
a business. You really need both.
Yeah. Yeah,
Part of your
agreed.
online presence is to build your brand so that people can go. If you're a restaurant, people want to see your menu online. They want to see reviews. They want to see a face. Who's the owner? Who's the chef? And if I'm working with a restaurant, and I see that they don't have an online presence, I say, look, if you're the owner and you're out front, or you're the chef in the back, but you're still the owner,
Mm-hmm.
you have to present to the customer that comes to find out about your restaurant. Maybe you have a blog about your recipes, the things that are so popular in your restaurant. Maybe you talk about, your passion for being a chef, the places you've worked. So there's so much you can do. And this is where my expertise is again, developing a strategy. But again, I'm not going to be writing the articles. I'm not going to be, creating the actual content, although I can, by the way, but that's not my area of expertise. So
Mm-hmm.
I always bring in the proper experts who will handle that area.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you about your experience actually regarding franchises because I actually was, surprised and pleased to hear that you owned a franchise before and you successfully sold that franchise. I believe it was quite a few years ago.
My last store I saw was in 2000. So yes, it was 24 years ago.
24 years ago.
Yeah.
So what were the key factors that contributed to your success as a franchisee? And what prompted you to eventually sell?
Okay. So first, just to delineate franchisee from franchisor, the
Mm-hmm.
franchisee is someone who buys it, and you know this, okay, but I was the franchisor. So
Okay.
yes, so I actually built my own franchise company.
Okay. Thank you for saying that because I do get that, but I when in our conversation, I didn't realize that you were the franchisor.
Yes.
I thought you were the franchisee. So this is great. Yes, please tell us
Yes.
more.
So I started my business. It was an optical eye care and eyewear. Back my first store opened in December of 1985. And I rapidly expanded. By 1990, I had 5 company stores. Okay. And I had this vision. I wanted to be a franchisor. Um, I thought of me as being my business being the McDonald's of the eye care industry. And
Okay.
there were big competitors out there like Cones and Sterling, and back then Pearl Vision, who's still around. And
Hmm.
I just wanted my piece of the rock, so to speak. And so I went and hired a consulting company that helped me put together my franchise program, which
Hmm.
allowed me to really get to understand how to build the nuts and bolts of a system. That's
Hmm.
a system that you can duplicate over and over again.
Absolutely.
So, and that's what franchising is. It's basically the ability to take a concept and sell that to people so that they don't have to figure it out on their own. Tells them what to do. You come up with a franchise manual, policies and procedures, everything from putting the key in the door in the morning to putting the key in the door when you leave at night, everything
Mm,
in between. So that was the most valuable experience for me in terms of entrepreneurship, because I really got to see both sides.
nice.
I started it, I built a concept, I built a brand, and then expanded. But I made mistakes. I overexpanded, I over leveraged. These are mistakes that people in business make over and over again. And not supposed to make that same mistake twice. And I started selling my stores. I had reached, I was at 17 locations throughout Long Island and Queens.
Hmm.
And it was good. It was good, but the interesting part is that really didn't need to franchise. My first store was with me involved, and my wife
Hmm.
was my best store. So what did I learn? Me was the business.
Hmm.
Okay? And franchising is not just duplicating a concept, it's duplicating yourself.
Hmm.
So what your vision is, how you run a business, how you deal with customers, how you make them happy, how you keep them coming back. Those are all parts that are often not focused on as well as they should be.
Hmm.
People build franchise companies. And that's why you'll see a lack of consistency. You go into, I'll use restaurants like a Chili's or that kind of fast food, where you can go to one restaurant and everything, the food is good, the people are nice, the hostess is great. Then you go
Hmm.
to Chili's in a different area and it's like they ignore you. The wait service is horrible. The food is cold. And you say to yourself, they're both Chili's. Now, why is it different? Well, that's my example. And I
Hmm.
found that as I expanded rapidly, I couldn't duplicate what I had created
Hmm.
from the personality part of the business.
Mm.
So, what I'm giving you here is 40 years of good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
And I think, for those who will be listening to this, I think it's valuable to hear that it's wonderful to be in business. It really is. There's nothing better than owning your own business, but it's not all, roses.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to go through the pain to get to the pleasure. And I would say that's the most important thing I can say about my history in franchising. I would, if I had to do it over again, I would do it, but I would do it differently.
Hmm.
It's easy to say that, in any part of your life. Well, if I had to do it over again, I would do it differently. Well, that's life, right?
That's life. Well, after selling your franchise, how did your career transition into coaching? And what parallels do you see between being a franchise owner and a coach?
That's a great question. I would say there's a lot of parallels, and I didn't go right into coaching. What happens is because I call myself a serial entrepreneur.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, what's my next business? It's interestingly enough. So when I was in the franchise business, the early days of electronic payment processing were upon us in the mid 80s. So I met some people because I had to lease equipment. I had to get processing for the stores. So I learned, again, learn. So I met some people and they were in the selling of payment processing and other marketing services. So I was enamored by that and I became friendly with these people. And I wound up opening a business that revolved around the sale of processing tied into loyalty and rewards. And then crazy enough, I started a magazine called Best of Long Island Restaurants. And so you can see where, I'm shifting from a retail environment into more of a B2B. That was where I'm selling products and services to businesses. I enjoyed it, but I spent a little too much time on the operation side, which I didn't enjoy. I had a partner that's all he did was sell. He was what he considered to be a sales expert. We had a different way of selling, but that's okay. But that's something that, again, here's my evolution. I start a magazine, get involved in the payment processing world. I get involved in digital marketing, then I get involved in technology as technology continues to grow. I actually develop technology for nonprofits to help them raise funds, tied into point of sale. When someone says, would you like to donate $1 or round up? If you've seen that was technology that my company had built many years ago. So I'm really what you call a true entrepreneur. I love the idea of building and creating. I love the idea to launch method. You have an idea, you wake up in the morning, like, wow, this sounds great. A lot of them, you wake up in the morning, go, nah. But sometimes something hits you and it's like, no, that was pretty good. Let's see if we could take that somewhere. So this is where I went with that. But what got me into coaching and where I see the parallel is that what do you do with 40 years of experience if you just let it sit on the shelf? So I found that this is an area that I really enjoy. I've been there, done that. I felt that I'm not ready to retire. I don't know if I ever will, because to me, work has never been work. It's always been like my hobby. So I enjoy it. And it's like, what can I do? Well, I said, let me start coaching. And I started that a little over a year ago. And since then, that's pretty much all I'm doing. I still own a business in the fundraising technology world that's at its inception. It's not really off the ground yet. So I keep my hand in the entrepreneurial part of my brain. But for the most part, I'm seeking relationships with people like yourself, where there's a value that I can bring to the table that helps you with your clients.
Okay. All right. Well, now will be a great time to actually bring in Gregg. Excited to know about that relationship. So let's bring Gregg in. Hi, Gregg.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry for the wait, Gregg. Sorry for the wait.
No problem.
All right, Gregg. So welcome to Franchise Vibes. And just, we had some great information from Keith and excited to understand and know how you guys got together. And the first thing I want to discuss with you is just a little bit more about yourself and your business. So I'll let you start with your introduction.
Sure. So my name is Gregg Johnson. I'm a Focal Point business leadership coach. My whole background has been finance and operations throughout my 30-year career, working for mainly small to mid-sized businesses, privately owned, manufacturing and distribution. What got me interested in business coaching was that I felt like in positions of chief financial officer, chief operating officer, I have been coaching business owners and leaders, but from a position within the organization
Mm.
Now I get to do it from outside of the organization, and I get to do it with multiple companies. And it just gives me the flexibility that I'm looking for at this point in my career, but it also helps me to be able to serve business owners and business leaders in a way that I think I can provide them with some valuable insight from a third party perspective.
Awesome, awesome. So there is some familiarity, at least from my audience, with Focal Point because I actually had them on one of my webinars before. I had a coach on there. So the coincidence, I just had to do this, having another one. So from what I understand, I know that there's particular focuses. So with Focal Point, you're able to, no pun intended, right? You're able to have a focus on a particular, how can I say, field or area in business to coach. Am I right about that?
Yeah, one of the things they really encourage is for all of us to have an ideal client. Who's
Right.
that individual, who's that company out there that really we can relate to, whether it's in our background or that's what we're passionate about, whatever the case may be. And it doesn't mean you can't coach outside of those areas, but it's certainly helpful to have an ideal client in mind when you're going to market, when you're pursuing sales leads and that sort of thing. For
Okay.
me, my ideal is a small to mid-sized manufacturing or distribution company, and ideally where that owner is a second generation or more owner.
Okay. And as far as what you're coaching on, is it, I believe you said, was it accounting or what
Well,
area that
certainly my area of expertise is finance and accounting.
finance and
And it's really one of the reasons why I got connected with Keith, whose background is really entrepreneurship and heavily into sales and marketing. Because I looked at my background and said, the area where I may not be as strong in sales and marketing, and what if I come into a company that really needs a lot of sales support, a lot of sales training, a lot of sales and marketing work. Well, I felt like, partnering up with someone like with Keith's background made perfect sense because we complement each other so well in terms of our backgrounds.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you thought about basically the area where you felt like additional coaching was needed because I understand also as being a part of a franchise, when you're a franchisee, there's going to be particular some sort of mentorship and coaching. But you saw it fit to go ahead and go outside of that or kind of add another layer. And that is how you met up with Keith.
Yeah, really, Keith's helped me in a number of ways. Not one is he helps fill in that part of the business, sales and marketing where I'm not as strong. But secondly is as a business owner, I've got to do sales and marketing. I've got to create lead generations. I've got to nurture leads. I've got to close deals. And again, I'm really comfortable at coaching, but when it comes to the sales and marketing aspect, that's just not something that's, heavily in my background. So Keith has been coaching me on how to do those activities. And that's been really valuable as well as I get my business up and going.
So how long have you been working with Keith? How long you guys are working together?
We started about the beginning of the year. Yeah,
Okay.
we knew
Even
each
more
other
than I thought.
previously from a group we both belonged to, and when Keith found out that I was starting up my own business, Keith's been an entrepreneur for 30, 40 years, so we got to talking and said, there might be an opportunity for us to really kind of work together for the benefit of both of us and for the benefit of our clients.
So you just opened your business this year?
Right. I bought the franchise right at the end of 2023. I did all the initial training that's provided by Focal Point, and it's really been since early January that I've been
Okay.
active in my own business.
Awesome. So why I asked about that too, because sometimes I may run across someone that when I just based off of maybe their transferable skills, I'll ask them if coaching is something that they would have an interest in. And then you may have some people that feel as though they themselves as entrepreneurs, sometimes they just don't see the value in investing in something like this for their business, as far as focusing on how they can maybe focus on expense reduction, or focusing on the areas that you're focusing on, and I feel like that is that's a mistake. That's something that you don't want to look at it that way, because as we discussed a little bit earlier before you got on, how important seeking out some type of coaching or mentorship is to your business. So I wanted to ask you guys, how do you feel? Like, what can you say to someone that's not really seeing why it is, how it's important to even their bottom line, really, as to why they may want to look into to bringing in companies where they can be coached?
Yeah, I think regardless of how good of a business owner somebody is, how good of a leader they are, having a third party objective, someone that they can really maybe talk about some things they couldn't talk about with their leadership team or their other their business owners, is really invaluable. And I think, you think about the greatest athletes in the world, right? Tiger Woods, when he was at the top of his game, he had a swing coach. Tom Brady had a quarterback coach. So the greatest athletes in the world see value in having a coach around them, somebody to help point out blind spots. Again, somebody that they can be vulnerable with, somebody that they can maybe talk about things that they wouldn't want to talk about with a coworker, a subordinate. A lot of times being a business owner can be pretty lonely. You're kind of set apart maybe from the rest of the organization because you're the owner, because you're the leader. So having somebody that you can really share some of those insights with, share some of your challenges, and get a different perspective on things, I think is really valuable. And I think ultimately it all comes down to, is there really a return for the investment you make in business coaching? And I think time and time again, you can find business owners who can point to specific tangible benefits that they've received through business coaching.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the challenges then. And I think that this is something either of you can touch on. What are the most common challenges you've seen your clients face, particularly those who are just starting out? And how do you coach them through these challenges?
One of the big challenges somebody faces when they're first starting up a company is that in a lot of cases, it's just them. They have to do everything. They're responsible for sales, for lead generation, marketing, whatever the operations are. They have to close the books. They have to write the checks. They have to be, they're wearing every hat the business has, right? Finance, operations, and sales. And that's challenging because a lot of us are good in one or two areas, but to be good in all three is definitely a challenge. So I think understanding as a business owner that you can't do it all on your own is really important to understand, and to try to find those things that you're not as good at and getting those off of your plate as quickly as possible. Now, sometimes you can't do that right away, right? You're brand new in the business and you have to wear all those hats because you can't afford to outsource some of those things. But I think if there's the opportunity to, I think finance is a common one, right? A lot of business owners, they're good at sales or they're passionate about whatever it is that their business operations are, but they're not finance people. They're not accounting people. So finding that bookkeeper, accountant, somebody that they can offload that part to, I think makes a lot of sense.
Let me add something to that from my perspective as a lifetime entrepreneur, and going back to mistakes that I made early on. There's a lack of preparedness when you first decide you want to go into business. And I actually spoke about this with Gregg last week. I think it might have even been on our Biz Talk Weekly show when we talked about, I always knew I needed a Gregg in my business. Okay. Because I don't have the patience for finance, and I just want to sell, make money. And to me, if I bring in $1, I think I have $1 to spend. It's like when the fact remains, you gotta leave something at the bottom line, so that you can pay the bills. But so there's a preparation part of like, okay, I have an idea. I want to go into business. This is the kind of business, and seek out someone like Gregg. Okay. Even before you seek out a coach when you're in business, you really need somebody who's in the finance arena that can go through. And someone like Gregg is a perfect example because he's been a chief operating officer and CFO. So it's not just finance, it's operations, it's all the different facets. Gregg doesn't have to be a salesman to know that if you don't have enough capital when you start out your business, you're heading for a disaster. And the only way to know that is with a good, solid plan. So I would say business planning is probably step one of anything you're going to do before you even make that final decision, like I'm taking the leap.
So this transitions well into my next question, and it's about choosing the right coach. And I think you guys kind of spoke a little bit to that, but for entrepreneurs looking to find a mentor or coach, what criteria should they consider to ensure that they choose someone who can truly help them achieve their particular business goals? Like, let's really really bullet point those aspects. Who would like to start?
So I could tell you that it's a very difficult question to answer because I'm always leery if someone says they coach everything. If you say you coach everything, you coach nothing. So I think, in business, when you plan, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I think that's an area that when you're planning, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? And what are my threats? Well, if I'm a lifetime salesperson, I say lifetime, I might be 30 years old, but that's what I've done for the last 10 years and I'm good at it. But I've never run a business. Obviously, my weaknesses are I don't know how to run a business. Okay. Now, if I've been, I went to school to be a doctor, okay, and I'm going to open a practice. Okay, I may be a great doctor, but I have no business sense. Okay, I don't know how to run a practice. Yeah, you can read books and things like that, but at the end of the day, you need mentorship, guidance, and coaching. So I would say that your biggest weakness is where you should start looking for a coach or mentor, because you can always move on to, okay, my business, I get it, my business is up and running. My books are set up. I've been coached and guided in those areas. Now I want to focus on building my practice, which means I have to know how to bring in, new patients, that goes to the marketing end of the business. How am I presenting the practice online? So there's so many different areas of a business that you really can't hire one coach. And I use sports as an analogy. You don't see the hitting coach being the catching coach, or the pitching coach. I mean, there's different areas of coaching, and it's very difficult to afford everything. But I would say that the area to start would be, where is your greatest weakness? Gregg, you may think a little differently. I'm not sure. So
I think that's a good point, Keith. What I would add to that is I think when choosing a coach, it's important to talk with some different coaches and see what kind of what kind of connection you're making with that individual. Because I think you want somebody who you're comfortable talking to. You want somebody who is going to give you open and honest feedback. I think one of the really important things that you want from your coach is somebody who's going to be willing to, show you some of your weaknesses and point out some of the things that you're not maybe as strong in. And I would say from a business owner standpoint, if you're going to hire a coach, be willing to be coached, be willing to accept that kind of criticism and act upon it. There's a lot of business owners out there who probably aren't ready for business coaching because they aren't going to be that open with somebody in a coaching relationship. But for those who are, who are saying, hey, you know what, I want more out of my business than what I'm getting today. There's a reason you're bringing that coach in. Well, don't treat that relationship as, sort of this distant relationship, but let that coach come in and understand your business, understand your people, and understand you as a leader, and let them guide you through the challenges you're facing. Not make decisions for you. I'm not suggesting you bring a coach in to offload any of the decision making or the responsibility. But again, somebody to help you look at alternatives, think about creative solutions to problems that you as a business owner might be facing.
Awesome.
Very, very well put. Yeah, I think it's really critical that you embrace a coach, and if you've hired them and you said, I'm going to trust this person, then truly trust them. And before you came on, Greg, I had mentioned that my earliest days in business, I rejected mentorship, okay, because I wanted to be like the person. I don't want anything that would diminish, my role as being the leader of my business, and it hurt me. And the cost of a coach, everyone looks at the cost, but they don't look at the ROI. Because if you don't get coached and you make those mistakes, the cost can be drastic and far greater than what it would cost to have a coach.
And just another point on that, as Keith said, a lot of business owners, all they've known is working in their own business. Maybe they were in the business when their dad owned it or parents owned it. Now they're taking over, and they only have that perspective. And one of the things I think a business coach, you look at Keith's background, you look at my background, we would bring 70 plus years of experience in to understand that there are other ways to solve problems than what you've solved, than the way you've used at your own business. And again, that's that outside perspective that you can't get anywhere else but from a third party.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, before we wrap up, could you share a piece of advice or a mantra that has been pivotal in your journey and could inspire our audience as they navigate the challenges of entrepreneurship?
I have one that I live by when it comes to sales, which always remember, you are the product. People buy people. Products and services are generally commodities, okay, that you can go anywhere, but people really are attracted to people who they like and trust. And when you build that kind of trust with customers, I know in my own business, and again, remember I said earlier that I couldn't duplicate myself in all those stores that I opened. That was a failing because I was the face of my business. When I wasn't there, my business suffered. And you want to be that person that people come back because of you. Okay, yeah, I'm not saying that you can have a bad product and people are still going to come back because you happen to be a nice person. That's not going to happen. And you have to cross your T's and dot your I's in business and make sure that you're covering all bases. But at the end of the day, if you can have a great product and great delivery and great staff, people are going to look to the leader as the person who either made that environment or ruined that environment. So sell you. That's my mantra.
I think for me, it would be, really, as a business owner, realizing you can't do it all yourself. And that means building a team around you, whether that's a team of employees or a team of outside resources, whatever the case may be. But really knowing that you're going to need help to be successful in your business, and don't be afraid to feel like you've got to do it all on your own. Do the things you're passionate about, do the things you're great at, but the things you're not good at and the things you don't like doing, those are the things that you want to get off your plate, and find others to help you do that.
Awesome. Well, guys, this was great. Love talking about this area because it is extremely, extremely important when it comes to entrepreneurship, whether it is a startup, a small startup, or you stepping into franchising. I think it's was a very insightful and helpful conversation. And I thank you both for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. We really enjoyed it.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks, TAMIKA.